these great muhaddis, like Imam Abu Hanifa is not a muhaddis, sorry, like Imam Shafi'i or Imam Ahmad, in their madhahib there is one opinion. Then later on comes on Ibn Taymiyyah, he gives another opinion. Later on comes in Ibn Baz, he gives one opinion. Then comes Sheikh Al-Albani, he basically dismisses this, that. And like these great scholars of 1200 years ago, they didn't know this hadith was weak. Some guy from Albania who studied Hanafi fiqh and then became muhaddis out of nowhere, he knows this hadith is weak. How is this? And I cannot answer him because I don't have masters in hadith.
Easy. None of those great scholars that came later, Ibn Taymiyyah, came up with an opinion that the earlier scholars didn't hold. Okay, so it's not like they figured something out. Now, let me give you an example. This is a work of Sheikh Albani right here. Okay, Silsila Ahadith al-Da'ifa wa Mawdu'a. When he talks about a hadith being weak, he does not figure it out on his own. He quotes those earlier scholars. He says Ibn Adi said about him, right here. Yeah, he says Al-Hafidh, yani Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani said about him. أخرج Tabrani fi Mu'jam Tabrani and Al-Bayhaqi mentioned. And then he gives, for example, Walid ibn Muslim kana yudallis. Walid ibn Muslim was a mudallis. Why? And then he quotes Ibn Hibban, Shafi'i, Ahmad, and Yahya bin Ma'in and others for their jarh wa ta'dil. So he's not coming up with some new mas'ala or a new grading of hadith. He's bringing those earlier scholars of hadith and their references and presenting it to us. So there's nothing that Ibn Taymiyyah came up with, or Sheikh Albani or Sheikh Ibn Baz, that they didn't quote the earlier scholars on. It's just people are ignorant. They don't actually read their works. If you get Irwa al-Ghalil, which is right here, is the book of Sheikh Albani, Irwa al-Ghalil. It's a takhrij of the hadith from a book called Manar al-Sabil, which is the sharh of a book called Dalil al-Talib. So here, every hadith, then he will say, for example, أخرج Abu Dawud wa Ahmad wa Nisa'i. This was reported by Abu Dawud, Ahmad and Nisa'i. And then he will mention the sanad, al-Hisham, said from al-Mansur, from Ibn Aoun. Now he says, hadith sahih ala shart sahihain. The hadith is sahih according to the conditions of the sahihain. And then he references, qala Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, and then he quotes about each narrator why they're authentic. And then he quotes which other earlier scholars have reported this hadith and graded its authenticity. And then, like Al-Dhahabi said, it's sahih. And then he quotes from Al-Dhahabi that this was also reported by Ibn Khuzaymah, who also said that it was correct. And he quoted from Ibn Hibban and Al-Hakim, who also said it's correct according to the shurut of Sahihain. So he's not coming up with his own gradings. He's quoting those earlier scholars. This is the ignorance of people because they don't actually read the works of scholars. So this is absolute nonsense that earlier scholars knew one thing and new scholars came later and changed it up. No.